Hello, my name is Dr. Michael Arnhem. You can see the name on the board there, and I have done previous YouTube videos, one on the Charlie Gard case, and today I want to talk about something quite different. And I've written a number of books. You can find my Wikipedia article, Wikipedia biography, under my name, Michael Arnhem. That's just a little commercial there. And here's another for my latest book, you can see here, A Practical Guide to Your Human Rights and Civil Liberties. Now, today I actually want to address Theresa May. Hello, Theresa. Why have you never taken my advice that I've given you in all these Huffington Post blogs? I really feel very disappointed, and so should you, because you would have done a lot better had you taken my advice. Anyhow, let me congratulate you on your performance as a comedian. You are a wonderful comedian. Unintentional, I'm afraid. But there's no getting away from it. You are a comedian. I was very amused at your recent attack, slightly veiled attack, on President Donald Trump, with whom I thought you got on so well. You even invited him to come on a state visit to Britain, although not everyone agreed with you on that. And now, after all that, when you were at the United Nations a few days ago in September 2017, you said that denying global warming was as serious a threat as the threat posed by Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Are you serious? Well, of course you weren't serious. You're a comedian. But assuming you were serious, is that really at all likely? The threat from Kim Jong-un is a threat to blow up huge parts of countries that he regards as hostile to himself. South Korea, possibly bits of Japan, Guam, Hawaii, even parts of the mainland USA. And his threats are serious. I believe they're serious. He's a bit of a comedian as well, but not when it comes to this. Maybe when it comes to his hairstyle, his gestures, but not perhaps when it comes to his murdering members of his family. He was pretty serious about that, and they were killed. His half-brother, his uncle. But those did not affect the mainland USA, the USA mainland, or South Korea, or Japan. But this does. It's no idle threat. He's got nuclear capability. That seems obvious. And his threat is serious. And yet you are equating Donald Trump's pulling out of the Paris global warming climate change accord, you're equating that to the danger of an atom bomb. He even says he has a hydrogen bomb, I think. How can there be any comparison? I know you didn't mention Donald Trump's name, but you still seem to be drawing that comparison, that global warming denial is just as bad as the threat of nuclear destruction. Global warming is a debate. Not all scientists even agree that it's occurring. There's a lot of debate going on about it. Let me quote you one. Roy Spencer, who is an authority on the subject and has written a book recently called Inevitable Disaster. It's called Inevitable Disaster, Why Hurricanes Can't Be Blamed on Global Warming, because that is a very fashionable view now in certain quarters, that these hurricanes that we've been seeing in the Caribbean and Florida are a manifestation of global warming. Roy Spencer says that is not the case. His book has, as has been rather wittily put, has already made landfall on the Amazon bestseller list. And what does he say? He challenges the assertion that the hurricane season that we've just witnessed has anything to do with climate change and with man-made intervention. This isn't what human-caused climate change looks like, says Roy Spencer. It's what weather looks like. That's just one example. There's another expert who has said that the seas are no higher now than they have been many times in the past. So please don't go along with this politically correct theory, because that's really what it is. It's a theory. And it is embraced largely by the politically correct camp. It's got no comparison with the threat of nuclear war from Kim Jong-un. Where does global warming come from? Yes, of course, the big thing is supposedly carbon emissions, talking about your carbon footprint. But there are lesser known causes also, assuming that carbon emissions are in fact a cause. water usage is one. Efforts to maintain and purify water. And water has become a valued commodity in certain parts of the world. It's in short supply in certain parts of the world, or what we used to call the third world, the developing world, as they now say. Deforestation is another. And what lies behind all that? One very important thing: population. There is a population explosion going on in the world today, and especially in the third world. That is not something that the climate change, global warming fraternity talk about. They don't mention it at all. At all. Doesn't happen to suit them. But if you are looking for man-made causes of all these problems, then you really shouldn't avoid looking at the population explosion. And in particular, that is caused by what is called the youth bulge. That in these third world countries, there is a bulge of population amongst young people, partly because of the do-gooders who have managed to cut down on infant mortality. They have given these countries the advantages of modern medicine so that infants, children, don't die in infancy so much anymore. They don't suffer the usual traditional childhood diseases. And as a result, the population has grown exponentially, so they haven't really benefited these countries at all. You won't see this mentioned by the global warming fraternity or by the politically correct fraternity generally. If you have a look at a website called breathingearth.net, Breathing Earth, that's one word, breathingearth.net. It's actually mainly concerned to show you the growth of carbon emissions, but in actual fact it does something else as well, because it's a simulated in real time births and deaths in all countries in the world. Any country you click on, it'll show you, or just hover over, it shows you in real time, but it's simulated, the number of births and deaths happening right now. Like, for example, in India, there are 3.9 deaths every minute, but there are 1.3 births every minute. So, in other words, the number of births is 3 times the number of deaths. The population is out of control in India and a number of other countries, third world countries. This is a very, very serious problem. Have you ever heard of it? Unfortunately, it's not well publicized. Not well publicized at all. The figures are absolutely shocking. I'll give you another example. Nigeria. One person dies every 12.7 seconds. One person is born every 5.7 seconds. So, in other words, the number of births is over twice as fast as the number of deaths. Population is growing exponentially. I was in the Hilton Hotel in Athens a couple of years ago, and I happened to get talking to a group of very prosperous Indian businessmen, and I said to them, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" They're all from the bigger cities, and the population of those cities is astounding, absolutely astounding. I said to them, "What is India going to do about the population problem?" They said, they didn't know what I was talking about. They said, "No population problem. It's a product distribution problem." In other words, they were looking at it as simply a question of distributing their goods to customers. There were more customers now because of the population explosion. But the population was not evenly distributed because, of course, so many of them were poor. That's all they were concerned about. They didn't seem to think the numbers were a problem. But they are, because when you get these large numbers, especially amongst young people, what does it lead to? It leads to unemployment in their own countries, shortage of scarce resources, including water, revolution, and civil war. This is what the Arab Spring in 2010 was all about. This is where that came from. And then it spills over into terrorism. So that's where terrorism comes from also. And migration to Europe. All these three things are connected. The Arab Spring, or similar movements, we saw starting in Tunisia, going to Egypt, and of course Syria. Civil war there. It's been going on for 7 years. Terrorism and migration to the West, coupled with a threat to Western civilization. What's the solution? Oh yes, those politically correct merchants who do recognize this have a solution, which is produce more food. Find easier and cheaper ways of desalinating seawater. It's the wrong way round, upside down. It's never going to be possible to feed the huge numbers of people in the future. The solution has to be from the other end. In other words, population control. Population control. Have you ever thought about that, THERESA? to my amazement, there was a program on the BBC on the 3rd of September, I think it was, around that time, in which they did highlight the problems of the population explosion in Africa. They particularly concentrated on Niger and Ethiopia. And they pointed out that the population of Niger will triple by the year 2050. And by that time, Africa will make up 1/4 of the world's population. But they also mentioned that the key to this is women, because women tend to want fewer children. It's their husbands who want more. And they introduced the concept of the female contraceptive implant, which was being promoted, and also what they called husband school, where the men were trying to be persuaded to have fewer children. That was a wonderful surprise, I found, that program, but very rare. But that is something which may or may not take place. What can the West do about it? Well, the main thing is to tie in aid to population control and to say to these third world countries, no more aid unless you actually take positive steps which are demonstrable positive steps to control your population growth. Aid must be tied to that. This is the sort of problem we are talking about. Kim Jong-un is a really serious threat. Climate change may or may not be, but overpopulation certainly is. THERESA, I hope you watch this.